Welcome to today's Explainer. I've got to say, I am absolutely pumped to share this one with you because we're looking at one of the most unbelievable, literally mind-blowing transformations in the entire history of our planet. Just imagine, for a second, standing right in the dead center of the Sahara Desert. What do you see? An endless baking ocean of sand, right? But what if I told you that hidden right beneath those dunes is a lost paradise? Today we are cracking wide open the mystery of the Green Sahara.
Chapter 1. The Desert's Hidden Past.
You know, it's so easy for us to just assume that the landscapes we see around us have simply always been there. I mean, the modern Sahara is almost the size of the entire United States. Temperatures routinely blast past 50 degrees Celsius, and rain, it's practically non-existent. It is a harsh, absolutely unforgiving place. But if you rewind the geological clock just a bit, scientists have found that between roughly 11,000 and 5,000 years ago, during something called the African Humid Period, things were wild. Instead of endless sand, we're talking vast, lush grasslands. Instead of deadly heat, flowing rivers and giant lakes. Seriously, imagine massive crocodiles and hippolas thriving exactly where those dry, rocky plateaus are sitting today. I know it sounds like pure science fiction, but it is entirely 100% true.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how we actually know all this. Because for centuries, the clues to this lost world were just sitting there, hiding in plain sight. Deep out in the desert, ancient travelers kept finding these bizarre rock carvings etched right into the stone. And when archaeologists finally got out there and analyzed them, they were completely stunned. These carvings showed elephants, giraffes, huge herds of cattle, and aquatic animals that wouldn't last a single afternoon in the modern Sahara. And as researchers started digging deeper beneath the sand, well, they found the physical proof to back it up. Fossilized fish, freshwater shells, even ancient river sediments. And this brings us to the sheer, unbelievable scale of the water we're talking about here. Researchers didn't just find ancient puddles, they discovered the shorelines of what we call megalakes. We aren't talking about some cute little desert oasis. We're talking about massive, ancient, permanent bodies of water that rivaled the size of modern seas, existing in places that today get absolutely zero rainfall. This supposedly dead desert was actually burying the remains of a massive, lost ecosystem.
Chapter 2. When the Sahara Bloomed.
Okay, so how on earth does the world's largest hot desert actually become a lush, watery paradise? Let's break down the mechanics here, because around 11,000 years ago, Earth entered this really unique climactic phase, and the trigger for it was surprisingly simple. You see, our planet doesn't spin perfectly straight up and down. It actually kind of wobbles on its axis over thousands of years, just a slow, gentle wobble. But that wobble subtly shifted how sunlight hit the Earth. At this specific point in time, the Northern Hemisphere's summers suddenly started getting blasted with much stronger sunlight. This extra heat basically acted like a giant atmospheric engine. It cranked up the African monsoon and dragged those heavy rain clouds way farther north than they usually go. Year after year, relentless rain just poured into these dry basins, rivers started flowing again, and the Sahara literally transformed into a living, breathing landscape. And of course, with all that fresh water came an absolute explosion of biodiversity. The Sahara turned into this thriving habitat for wandering elephants, grazing antelopes, and the predators that hunted them. The whole shebang. Honestly, it looked a lot more like modern-day East Africa than any desert. Those ancient rock carvings we talked about? They're basically thousands of little snapshots of a forgotten world, carved by the very people who witnessed this incredible lush paradise with their own eyes.
Chapter 3. Humans of Lost Paradise.
Because here's the thing, humans weren't just passing through this massive savanna on their way to somewhere else. They were setting up shop. They were making it their home. Ancient communities were incredibly vibrant here. They didn't just survive, they absolutely thrived. Archaeologists have dug up entire settlements that are now totally buried under huge dunes. Back then, people were fishing in those megalakes, hunting the abundant wildlife, gathering native plants. Eventually, they even started raising cattle. They were crafting intricate tools, making pottery, and building real cultural traditions. For thousands of years, the Sahara was this bustling crossroads connecting totally different parts of the African continent.
To really drive this home, let's look at one specific number: 7,000. In a highly remote rock shelter over in Libya called Takarkari, researchers uncovered naturally preserved human remains that date back 7,000 years.
Now, when scientists actually sequenced the DNA from those 7,000-year-old remains, they hit on a massive revelation. These people belonged to a unique, incredibly ancient North African lineage that had remained remarkably isolated. So what's the big takeaway for us? It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Green Sahara wasn't just some temporary rest stop or a convenient passageway for ancient migrations. No, it was a true homeland. It was a place where highly unique cultures and populations put down roots and evolved for millennia. It's crazy to think about just how much of ancient human history is still sitting right there, undiscovered, completely swallowed by the sand.
Chapter 4. The Rapid Collapse.
But obviously, looking at any maps today, we know this paradise didn't last. We saw how that orbital wobble created the Green Sahara in the first place. But nature? Well, nature is a pendulum. Eventually, those exact same orbital changes slowly began to reverse. The African monsoon lost its punch, and the rain started to fail. But here is the truly fascinating and kind of terrifying part: the climate feedback loop. As those massive lakes started shrinking and the lush vegetation died off, it exposed the bare dirt underneath. That lighter, bare land started reflecting more of the sun's heat right back up into the atmosphere. This totally killed evaporation, which meant clouds literally stopped forming, which meant even less rain. It became this brutal, vicious cycle. The drying process just fed on itself and accelerated rapidly toward total desertification.
And the staggering reality of that feedback loop is something climate scientists have debated for years. Did this collapse happen gradually, or did it happen all at once? Well, the evidence now shows that in some regions, an entire thriving environment that took thousands of years to slowly build up just unraveled in a matter of centuries. It was breathtakingly fast. The lakes vanished, rivers literally turned to dust. The animals had no choice but to flee. And for the human beings living there, the reality was brutally simple: adapt, move, or perish.
Chapter 5. Birth of a Civilization.
So, the world's largest hot desert is officially being born. But what happened to the millions of people who called that green paradise their home? It's kind of the ultimate historical mystery, isn't it? As the conditions deteriorated and this once lush landscape became completely hostile to life, where did these massive populations of climate refugees actually go to find reliable water?
Well, they went to the Nile Valley. As the drying Sahara aggressively pushed people out of their homelands, a massive wave of human migration was channeled eastward, drawn straight toward the mighty, permanent, life-giving waters of the Nile River.
And here is the incredible historical plot twist that I absolutely love. Researchers now believe that this enormous mass migration, triggered entirely by a devastating climate collapse, directly fueled massive population growth along the Nile. All those diverse cultures merging together laid the very foundations for one of humanity's greatest achievements: ancient Egypt. So, in a very real, tangible way, the geographical death of the Green Sahara was the direct catalyst for the birth of a brand new, legendary chapter in human history.
Chapter 6. Could it bloom again? So, it begs the question, is the Sahara permanently stuck as desert? Well, the short answer is, theoretically, no. I mean, Earth's orbital cycles didn't just stop, they're still happening right now. Over extremely long timescales, scientists know the Sahara has actually flipped between wet and dry states multiple times. Favorable conditions for a green paradise absolutely could return one day. But, and it's a big but, human-driven modern climate change throws a massive wrench into the gears. It introduces completely unpredictable variables. So the next green Sahara, if it ever does happen, might look wildly different from the one we've just been exploring.
I want to leave you with this really powerful thought. Earth remembers what humanity forgets. When we look out at the endless dunes of the Sahara today, it feels so permanent, unchanging. But beneath every single grain of sand is the memory of rushing rivers, massive lakes, and thriving human civilizations. It's such a humbling reminder that the landscapes we just take for granted are actually only temporary chapters in our planet's massive ongoing story. If you enjoyed this explainer today, thank you so much for joining me. And it really makes you ask yourself, if the world's largest desert is just a blanket hiding a lost paradise, what other ancient worlds are buried right beneath our feet, just waiting to be